Welcome everyone, good evening. I am speaking into the microphone for those who are sitting here in person, just so you know, so the folks sitting at home on the live stream are able to hear. Sisters, you'll do the same thing by speaking into the microphones. Welcome, thank you for joining us tonight. This month we are celebrating Women's History Month, and what a better way to kick off the celebrations than by starting where it all started, with the Sisters of Mercy. My name is Lindsay Frank. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at Mercyhurst. I am a 2012 graduate of Mercyhurst. My own personal experience with the Sisters of Mercy started when I entered into high school at Mercyhurst Prep, just up the hill. I then continued on here to Mercyhurst, then college. I feel so fortunate to have had in my life the great opportunity to attend schools that have been led by very strong women religious, both with the Sisters of Mercy and at my grade school with another group of sisters. And I now have known the Sisters of Mercy for over 20 years, so I am very fortunate. You, my fellow alumni and colleagues that are here, and fellow alumni listening from home, are also so fortunate. So let us begin with some introductions of our 4 panelists for the evening, 4 Sisters of Mercy, but also 4 women who are also Mercyhurst alumni. So we have with us tonight Sister Pat Whalen, Sister Lisa Mary McCartney, Sister Natalie Rossi, and Sister Mary Ann Bader. Now, sisters, we've talked that tonight is going to be very conversational, so I will pose a question for all of you, and then I'll turn it over to you, and I know that you have your plan of how you will answer and how you'll kind of go around. But the first question, of course, has to start out with intros. So I would like you to tell us about yourself, your Mercyhurst College and Mercyhurst University background, your career background. Tell us all about you.
I'm Sister Pat. I'm hoping you can hear me. Of all the 4 of us up here, I think I've had the longest relationship with this building. In 1955, I attended high school here, Mercyhurst Seminary. It was on the first floor of what's currently the main hall. We had 4 grades, 9 through 12. I graduated in 1959, and then in September of '59, I started my career in education at Mercyhurst College. I was an education major. I finished that in 1963, and I realized Mercyhurst was 37 years old when I graduated from high school. When I thought of that, I thought, that's unique. But I had a wonderful education here. And then following that, my senior year of college, I entered the Sisters of Mercy, and went through a period of learning what it is to be a sister. And then I began to teach at St. George School for 3 years. I was at St. Patrick's School in Franklin for a year and a half. I had the opportunity to be a principal teaching 8th grade, and again, wonderful years of learning. Following my graduate studies, I arrived here at Mercyhurst College in 1970, January. I taught in the education division for several years. One of the highlights of that period of time was the cadet teacher program. It was a special program to educate men and women to teach in a Catholic school. And that was just a wonderful program of helping young women and men, and sometimes adults came in, to learn to be prepared to teach in a school. During that time, I also coordinated the cadet teacher, the pre-teaching internship program. And in this way, our students in their junior year were able to go into classrooms and get real life experience, observing, doing some small group teaching, large group teaching. And then following a period of time in which I was on leadership of the Sisters of Mercy of Erie, I returned to Mercyhurst at the invitation of Dr. Gower, who was the academic vice president. I was his assistant for 3 years, and then I was invited by President Garvey to be the registrar. So after 19 years, I completed that work in December of 2016, and in January of 2017, the president of the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas invited me to be on a leadership team. We were in transition, and so I was in leadership at the institute level for the sisters who lived in Buffalo, Rochester, Erie, and Pittsburgh. It's a real fast story of my life and my career.
And there was never a graduation that you led that didn't go perfectly, right?
Thank you, Lindsay.
And we still continue the perfect model.
I made a round at Mercyhurst. I went from being a student at Mercyhurst to teaching locally at St. Luke's, and then St. George's, and then Mercyhurst Prep for 5 years, which I dearly loved. And then I went to graduate school, and I returned to Mercyhurst, and I've basically been here ever since on faculty and administration, and now in odd jobs. So the one thing I've thought about when this question was, it just struck me that I was I was very fortunate to have met Sister Dominica. Some of you know Sister Dominica because she was the alumni coordinator at here for a number of years, and loved being a part of the Alumni Association. And when I was working in Du Bois after I graduated from high school, I met one of the priests from one of the parishes, and I told him I really wanted to go to college, but my dad wanted to send me to Penn State, Du Bois, and I just didn't want to do that. So I decided I'd work and make some money. Well, in the end, he told me about the cadet teacher program, and he said to me, why don't you meet the sisters? So I went to Mass early one morning, about 8 o'clock Mass, I suppose it was, maybe even 7, and I just nabbed one of the sisters on the way out the door, and it was Sister Dominica. So Sister Dominica always considered me to be her postulant when I entered the community. After I went to graduate school, I decided probably a year or so, maybe 2 years early, that it was time for me, it was best for me really, to come back to Erie and not to stay on in my graduate work at the University of Notre Dame. It was a very tempting place to hang around, and so I came back, and when I was going to get a job, it was going to be a job in academic support. But in the end, David Palmer became the dean of the college, and he taught American literature, which I taught, and so the rest is history, as they say, until I returned was away in community leadership for a while and returned in 2008 and began 2008 and began the mission office.
My story probably was a little different, but I was in the cadet program, and remember I was supposed to go to Grove City College and learn and be a French teacher, but God knew better because I can't hear languages, so that would have been terrible. So my dad brought me up and said, there's this program at Mercyhurst, do you want to look into it? It had to do with teaching young children from 1st to 8th grade. So I came up and I liked it, and I did come here as a cadet. I came here 3 summers, 1 full year in school and taught 1 full year, and then I entered community. So as a sister of Mercy, I didn't come back to Mercyhurst until later when I was in campus ministry. But I've had a lot of opportunities in my life. I have taught 1 through 8th grade. all different types of things. I'm a better 8th grade teacher. I remember they put me in 1st grade, and because I'm little, I think, and oh my gosh, it was not, I'm not organized. So when I came back as an 8th grade teacher, I said, the mother said, oh, you had my son in 1st grade, and I said, well, can he read? And she said he could read, so I felt better about that. But I've also, I've been lucky because I went out to the reservation. I worked on the Navajo reservation for 7 years, and I went out because of Sister Rita Brocky, which some of you might have known. I went out to work as a nurse's aide in the hospital, and then the Franciscans there invited us to come back. And so I worked there for 7 years on the Navajo reservation, which was wonderful, doing religious education, but also going into the prison. And then I went to Albuquerque and began really working in prison ministry. But I started with men, and another sister, it was a sister of St. Joseph, we developed a program to work with men in the jail. And so we were there 9 years, and then I came back and really ended up working at Cambridge Springs Women's State Prison for 15 years. And I still go in for 2 years. And I'm here at Mercyhurst now in campus ministry, which I really love, and I'm part-time. So that's how I got back to Mercyhurst.
I have the distinction of being born in the same city as Mother Borgia, so I'm from DuBois. The sisters staffed the hospital where I was born, the grade school, and the high school, Sisters of Mercy all the way through. And so I entered the convent right out of high school. And we lived down on 21st and Sass very briefly, and then we opened the Mother House in 1968. So that's where we would walk down the hill. No Mercy walkway, no, you just came down and back up. It was, I was a music student in school. The sisters taught piano in a lot of our convents, and I took piano lessons in grade school and part of high school, and then under the guidance and leadership of Sister Helen Jean, Sister Helen Jean Sullivan, one of my favorite teachers and sisters, was able to finish with a music ed degree as well as the credits I needed for elementary ed. So when I finished, I was assigned to St. Patrick's in Franklin, where I was teacher and then principal. I was there for 23 years, and then came up here, back to Erie in 1995 for a year at Mercy Center for Women, and then was asked to take on the role of president at Mercyhurst Prep. I'm sorry, I skipped a step. I was at the Diocese of Erie for 6 years, working with teacher personnel and principals, and then was asked to come to Mercyhurst Prep. So I've been with the Sisters of Mercy pretty much right straight through in ministries and in my education. And following my time in those ministries, then I was in community leadership. So that's where I've been for the last 11 years. So I think I've enjoyed every place I've been. So wherever I am at the time, that seems to be my favorite spot to be. So.
Thank you all. Wonderful backgrounds. Nice, lovely mentions of fellow Sisters of Mercy from a couple of you, and I'm sure there's many, many, many that you could list that have impacted you, but it's exciting to hear some names coming about. Our next question is, can you tell us about the founding of the Sisters of Mercy and those core values that have guided your mission throughout the years?
I'm going to take that question. First of all, the core values, when I thought about the core values of the Sisters of Mercy, I thought, well, first of all, that's a kind of a contemporary jargon language of the core values, when you think of the Sisters of Mercy, what you think of primarily is their work with the poor. And I would say that the core values are really those root beliefs that the sisters have held and have passed on. And one of them is service, which Mercyhurst knows very well. There's an interesting story about the vow of service, which all sisters take in addition to the 3 traditional vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. When the sisters the community started, this was in 1831, and about 2 years after that, there was a vow ceremony in Cork in Ireland, and the bishop who had the ceremony said to one of the sisters, "Why don't you take a vow of service? That's what you do." So it didn't come from their thoughts about what they wanted to do. It was from what was observed from the outside. And I think that's really how core values develop. Even at Mercyhurst, when we struggled with the core values, it was like, what are we? Who are we? They must have taken 5 or 6 years before the core values that are very familiar to us now were written down. So anyway, he asked that question, and he said, "You care for the poor, the sick, and what they called then the ignorant." And he said, that's what you ought to do, is take a vow. And so it went back to Catherine Macaulay, and she agreed. So that's really how the vow of service came in. So that certainly is at the roots of the core value. The other thing, and Catherine Macaulay herself declared that the corporal and spiritual works were the business of our lives. That's how she said they were the business of our lives. So the works of mercy, that are rooted in the gospel, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. That's the germ, really, of the core values. And so those would be, I think, another way of speaking of the core values. About the founding, I could talk here for another hour and maybe talk about the founding of the Sisters of Mercy and our founding. But what I was thinking it would be helpful to say is simply watch In God Alone, Catherine Macaulay. All you have to do is Google it, and they will tell you in 22, 23 minutes give you a wonderful picture of the life and the struggles and the founding of the Sisters of Mercy. And it's one of those things which they capture her personality very, very well. And so I recommend that you do that. I thought 2 things I'd just like to share in light of this Women's History Month at Mercyhurst. One of them is that Catherine Macaulay, I believe really, that her commitment to education of girls and women and the suffering poor and their poverty was the greatest achievement of her life. The education of women and girls that were poor. She believed it was the only way out of desperate poverty. They were girls and young, especially young women, were very vulnerable at that time, living in slums and in poverty. They said at one point Ireland was well-to-do and rich and cultured in many ways in Dublin. And I learned recently that Handel's Messiah was first performed in Dublin. And at the same time, there were people coming in from the rural areas, from poverty, from the famines, and Edmund Burke, the philosopher, once said, the poverty in Dublin, Ireland, he thought was worse than any place in Europe. So it was really, really bad. And Catherine Macaulay, her commitment to education, I think was one of the things I think we can't forget. And I think the education of men in Catholic and Mercy institutions helps to serve better the life of women also. The second thing I'd like to say is I have been doing some reading on Catherine Macaulay, and one of the things I would like to share with you is something that I recently learned, and that is about her style of leadership. And at a time when, in her time, leadership was transactional and it was hierarchical. and Catherine McCauley led from the heart. Her leadership style was the way her was personal, it was warm, it was responsive to people's needs, and wherever she found them, those who she worked with and those who were poor. And that is what drew mostly young women to the community, was her personality, her person, her warmness, and her love. I'm going to read a quote from Frances Ward, who is considered to be the American founder. I think this says much about how a spiritual legacy is passed on. This quote here. This was in a letter that Frances Ward wrote to one of the sisters. I knew her, this was after she died, I knew her better than I have known anybody in my life. She was a woman of God, and God made her a woman of vision. She showed me what it meant to be a sister of mercy, to see the world and its people in terms of God's love, to love everyone who needed love, to care for everyone who needed care. Now her vision is driving me on. It's a glorious thing to be a sister of mercy. That's a famous quote, we know.
I would add just one other comment. I'm not sure this is a core value, but I think I heard years ago at a retreat a priest saying, Sisters of Mercy have a nose for suffering. And I think in our constitutions, which guide our lives, we're encouraged to be women of compassion, women of mercy, in our prayer, in our living. And today, what does our world need? Compassion.
Thank you very much. Our next question. How has being part of a religious community shaped your personal experience as a woman?
Okay, we all decided which questions we would answer. Okay, so I sort of already shared a lot about my journey, but I always think in my life, I have done more in my life as a Sister of Mercy than I probably would have ever done if I had not become a Sister of Mercy. And I think on my journey, when we were talking about the core values, and I think we also have the critical concerns, I think in my life, and I think because of my family, how I grew up with them always being open to other people and noticing the people that other people were rejecting and welcoming them in. So I think that's where I have received a lot of where I am in my life. And I think what Patty was sort of saying, both Lisa and Patty, is that for me, I believe God created each one of us with a special, unique journey in our life. And I believe it is to put compassion and love into the world, but we do it in our own unique way. And my unique way has always been, I'm not a real organizational person. I was in leadership once too. It's not my thing. I'm better in doing something else. But I think even working with the Navajos, I learned an awful lot about just being with people, being open to what the culture is. And I'm also a very broad-minded person as far as believing where God is in people's lives. I believe that God is bigger than we can imagine, and I believe everybody has their own unique way to God. So working with the Navajos was very easy for me because I was able to work with the culture and to see. Sometimes people thought they believed in many gods, but they believed in many aspects of God, rain and the earth, and very environmentally astute, really. So that was a gift for me. Also a gift of working with people in prison, because I have found with that on my journey as a Sister of Mercy, when we're talking about core values, you know, the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. If you've ever worked in prison, and I think some of you might have even gone in for being volunteer, you meet people that are really searching and really want to feel, okay, God still loves me, which we know God loves everybody. So that's the message I think sometimes people need to hear. So I think for me, my way of doing things is more like this kind of gentle kind of way. And I think when I still go into the prison 2 times a month. And I think that for me, I always say it's my vanity, because people know me from before and everyone will say, oh, Sister Natalie, Sister, you know, and so I think I need that in my life. You know, people go around and just, because that's where my gifts are. My gifts are there. And also I think with the students here, because just being able to sit with people and hear people and reach out to people. So I think my journey as a Sister of Mercy, and I see God's hand all the way in all the different things I've done. And I always, even at this point in my life, I always say, okay, where are you leading me? You know, and you want me here, I'm fine. If you want me to go some other place, I'm open to that. So I think that's for all of us, really. The journey is the same for everybody, but we do it differently according to who God created us to be. So as a Sister of Mercy, it's been a blessing for me, really. And I thank my dad for bringing me up here, because I grew up in Grove City, and our contact with sisters is they would come over every Saturday morning for CCD. So that was the only time I really got to see Sisters of Mercy until I came here to Mercyhurst. So, and I think what helped me decide to become a sister was Sister Judith, who was my supervisor. I was a cadet in Punxsutawney. So she was out there playing basketball with us. And it was just wonderful to see a human person within this sister. So I think that helped me. So that's my journey.
Thank you very much. I've heard a couple mentions this evening, and so now this is just my friendly reminder to all of the alumni in the room. We all have someone in our life to thank for having maybe brought us here to Mercyhurst. So Mom, Dad, I think you're watching out there, thank you. But to the alumni, if you have a chance to thank the person who maybe nudged you here or directed you here to Mercyhurst, let us remind them that we're thankful for that nudge. Our next question: as we celebrate Women's History Month, who are some historical or contemporary women who have inspired you in your journey and your work as a Sister of Mercy?
I'm going to start this answer, but I have one thing. I'm going to take the license of interjecting something that I should have said earlier. Some of you from Erie will remember Bruce Morton Wright of happy memory. He directed the chamber orchestra. Bruce was a few years ahead of me here at Mercyhurst, and he studied his music education here on the campus. And he went away and then came back, and it was my senior year, and my major instrument was organ. I needed to give the recital, and I needed an orchestration class. And Bruce, there were 3 of us who needed it. Bruce taught a summer course in orchestration. He was directing a little musical over in the little theater, and so when you arrange something, then he would take you over and you'd get to hear it, which in small classes, which they were all very small, was a real gift. Well, who better than someone who had this background that he had honed overseas and then come back and then went on to direct the chamber orchestra? Who better than Bruce? He was a wonderful teacher. That's not the question you asked me, but I would have to say that the women who inspired me I would say that women in my family, my mother, and also the sisters who came before me, particularly Sister Helen Jean, Sister Marion. These are music sisters who taught and who were we worked very closely together on many things. I lived with a musician now for many years, Sister Felice Daska, and we take care of the liturgy and the choir, the sisters' choir, and so on. So it's always stayed with me, and it's always a part of me. But it's from the sisters, from my piano lessons from 5th grade on up, that got me started.
I'd like to give tribute to the women that I've worked with here at Mercyhurst College and University. Very dedicated women, very self-giving, very committed to the mission. When I was in the registrar's office, we had 3 offices. We were very close in proximity, and I'm so aware of how much effort they extended to students, to parents, to alums, to faculty, to staff. And I learned so much from them. And one of them is sitting right here this evening, Michelle Wheaton. And we were co-workers. We worked together, we were a team. And Mercyhurst has given me, the Sisters of Mercy, I should say, have given me so many opportunities in my ministries. I'm so appreciative of them, of the ministries that I've been in, of the students I taught, of the colleagues in my ministry. And so the other person, of course, in my family life, my mom, my maternal grandmother, who went to Edinburgh Normal School. The family lived in the country, in the rural area. She taught one-room school, and she brought all of her siblings and her mother, who was widowed very young, mother, to Erie. And they all had very fine lives. And then my paternal grandmother, who, with my paternal grandfather, immigrated from Newfoundland. So I'm a second-generation immigrant, and how hard that was to leave your homeland. And my grandmother so missed it. In fact, she returned there to visit, was pregnant, and one of my aunts was born in Newfoundland. I don't know how she ever got naturalized, but she lived here and wasn't deported.
Thank you. Our next question is, what has been one of the most rewarding aspects of working as a Sister of Mercy, particularly in terms of impact on women's lives?
Well, one of our ministries is Mercy Center for Women, and it's developed quite a bit from its foundation in 1984, from a house on West Sword Street here in Erie to the former Holy Rosary Convent on East 27th Street, which the sisters purchased in 1994, and it provided transitional housing for homeless women, for those who were recovering from addiction or abuse. And in more recent years, about 3 years ago, we purchased Holy Rosary School, and it has 13 apartments well, we now have a single father with his son, but primarily women and their children. And then recently we purchased, Mercy Center for Women purchased Holy Rosary Rectory, which was vacant, and that's going to be used for transitional housing for people who are women who are coming out of prison, and other needs that are so homeless women that are so strong in Erie. The current director, Jenny Haggerty, tells us that numerous calls come weekly for housing for people who are in need, and so I think it's a tremendous ministry that has supported women, and we are so grateful for the people that have directed it and who serve on the board, and also who serve in the ministry, supporting women in such need, and many who are very successful upon completing the program. So it's a ministry for women.
I was thinking, where there's a need, it seems Mercy will respond, because there was, I think, a Sister Libby who was out in California, and there all of a sudden she starts a ministry. She's riding her bike to the homeless. She takes coffee every morning to the homeless. And I think they might take them something to eat. Well, all of a sudden now, there are 25 people riding on bicycles, taking coffee to the homeless in California. And the other place that's not here in Erie, but in Pittsburgh Mercy Health System, where when Mercy Hospital closed, some of the money went to open this institution, which works with the homeless, with the behavioral health and mental health, and all different types of, not diseases, but I forget what the real word is now to use, but people that really need extra help. And so I was on that board for a while, and I was just so impressed with what is being done. So I think Mercy, just not in Erie, wherever there's a need, it just seems that Mercy responds. So on just little things that can just blossom.
And there are fewer Sisters of Mercy, so we are so grateful for our lay partners who carry on our ministries. They are now leaders of our ministries, our sponsored ministries, and they serve in them, and pretty impressive people.
Thank you. We have one final question, and this question is open to as many of you that would like to answer, but a little story of my own. We are on the eve of our centennial. We are coming up on 100 years of Mercyhurst. It's going to be the biggest celebration of this university that any of us will see in our lifetime. And I have this vision that I think probably happened over 100 years ago. When the school was built, it was just Mercyhurst, Old Main was new. And I think that the founding sisters probably stood outside and looked up at Old Main in all of its magnificence and thought, look what we did. And they must have been so proud of themselves. And I feel in my career here a deep sense of duty to carry on that legacy. I think we are the legacy of that vision that they had 100 years ago. And I think that they would be so proud of you four sitting here, so proud of you. And so the final question for you is, what do you think they would say 100 years later if they were here to see everything that we've done here at Mercyhurst?
I think one of the things they would say is, you have kept education on the hill with Mercyhurst Prep and Mercyhurst University. They might also say, you have been good stewards of your ministries, turning the leadership over to those who will continue to tell the story. And one more thing they might say is, you have seen unmet needs and worked to alleviate those.
And I think they would be delighted with so many faculty and staff who have, in recent years, as there have become fewer sisters here, they would be delighted to hear people say, how can we keep the Mercy spirit alive here at Mercyhurst? I think that would be a joy to their hearts. Because remember, Catherine McCauley, as I think you may know, she was a laywoman for all but the last 11 years of her life. And she was doing the work at the House of Mercy as a laywoman. The women coming to help her were laywomen, Catholic and non-Catholic. And it was only when it seemed like they were living like a religious community that the church kind of stepped in and said, you know, you either have to be one or we'll give it to another, we'll give your house to another established community. So it was a hard decision for her to make, but she would be delighted to know of how many people are trying to help continue the Mercy spirit, and we have to keep thinking of ways to do that.
Sister Lisa Mary's not saying, but several years ago when she was in full-time with Mission, began a program called the Mercy Emissaries. And those folks studied over a period of the year, and then you might see them from time to time wearing the emissary pin, but they will continue to tell the story for us there are over 100 at this point who have, and they come and go too because they moved away, but still they have that background and that knowledge about us and about what Mercyhurst means to us and to them.
That program would never have happened if it hadn't come from the ground root up, from the people here at Mercyhurst, lots of staff, as well as faculty that were saying, well, what do we do?
We've also extended, this is a little plug for the Mercy Emissary program, we've extended it to our alumni base. We're currently on our 3rd alumni cohort to complete the program. So if any alumni here in the room or any alumni watching from home would be interested in signing up for our next cohort, you can give me a little email and we'll add you to the list.
I think too, they would say thousands of things. Thousands of things, thousands of things.
Very good. Thank you all so much. Let's have a round of applause for the sisters. Very well done. It was so enjoyable to hear from all of you. So many lessons learned. I know that we could continue talking all night long, and those who are here in the room are welcome to stay and chit chat, of course. I have just a few things to leave with you as we conclude here. Coming up next, we will continue our celebration of Women's History Month. This was just the first event for the month. Next up, we will have on March 13th a virtual panel, the Mercyhurst Maid panel, featuring some of our trustees who are also alumni of Mercyhurst. We will then have on March 18th, now this is going to get competitive, it is a virtual trivia, and we will cover women's trivia in general, but also Mercyhurst women's trivia. So get your teams, sign up for trivia, and of course there's prizes involved and bragging rights. So if you think that you can test your knowledge at trivia, all are welcome for that. And all throughout the month on our alumni social media, we will be running spotlights of Mercyhurst women. Mercyhurst women past, Mercyhurst women present, all of those who have been made by Mercyhurst, but who have also made Mercyhurst that we know and love. So thank you all for being here, thank you all at home, and thank you to the sisters. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.